So good evening, everyone. My name is Rob DeFazio. I am a membership and unit service executive with the Mayflower Council, and I'd like to welcome you tonight to Understanding Online Adult Applications, as it says on the screen, effective January 1st, 2023, a little more than 10 days from now. We're going to be transitioning to online applications only for both youth and adults. And it's very important that we have this discussion tonight to talk about the process and best practices. So when we get started tonight, we are going to talk about some best practices when it comes to advising your adult leaders on how to do this. And the first one is, we're going to break this down step by step. The first thing that your new adult leaders should do before they fill out the application is take youth protection training. Really important that we have that process done. And if they need to know where to find it, if they have their my.scouting.org account, they can log right in. It's right there on the right-hand side. If they need to make a my.scouting.org account, they should. And they should also write down that number, because that number is going to come in handy during the process whereby we are going to have them fill out the application. There's a couple of things when it comes to youth protection training and why it's so important. Believe it or not, youth protection training is the number one reason why we can't complete processing online adult applications. What happens, and what we found since we started doing this, is people are filling out the applications and not taking YPT, and they're also not responding when we reach out to them and ask them to take YPT. So we want to encourage everybody to make this the first step in the process. And the other thing we want you to know is that obviously all registered adult leaders are required to complete youth protection training before interacting with their scouts. So once they've taken youth protection training and gotten the handy dandy certificate, that's a key part of this whole process. They're going to need to complete a Corey form from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Now, according to Massachusetts state law, Corey checks are required by law for any organization or agency, including the Mayflower Council, that provides activities or programs for children 18 years of age or younger, prior to accepting any person as an employee, volunteer, vendor, or a contractor. And this can be found at mayflowerbsa.org/membership, or just scan that QR code. And when you get to that page, you're going to press the link on the left-hand side that says Corey Form for Adult Leaders. You're going to fill it out, submit it, and that's it. You're going to be all set there. So to backtrack for a minute, we want you to take care of two things that aren't affiliated with the application directly before you fill out the application. That just ensures that the rest of this process goes smoothly. So after your applicant completes step 1 and step 2, they can complete the application. And it's a pretty easy process here. They're going to go to beascout.org and they're going to enter in their zip code and look for the unit that they're going to be applying for. And when they do that, the units are going to come up and they're going to select this Apply Now button underneath the link for the unit they're going to be with. When that happens, the next screen probably looks familiar if you've been helping out your youth with filling out their online applications. But in this part here, they're obviously going to select the volunteers section. So we want them to do the volunteers section, and that's where they're going to start actually filling out the application. So this section here is, if they have a current my.scouting.org account, they're going to hit yes. If they don't, they can hit no. If they're not sure, have them hit no. It's okay for them to have two. We can fix that later on, but it does make things a little bit easier. The next part, tell us about yourself, their name, their particulars regarding their name, their mother's maiden name, their date of birth, their gender, and we're going to go right down the line here. And the next part will be their address and their phone number. After they complete this part, they're going to click down on the right-hand side here where it says to go to background step. And before they get to that, they're going to acknowledge they're authorizing us rather, and the Boy Scouts of America nationally to run a criminal background check. So there are 2 background checks that take place when we have adult leaders register. One of them is done by national, and one of them is a requirement of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and it does need to be done separately. So they're going to accept and move on to this next part. And this next part is background information. They're going to be asked questions such as, have you ever led a scouting or an exploring unit? They're going to answer that. We're going to ask them if they're an Eagle Scout. We're also going to ask them if they have experience working with youth and other organizations, and to explain and list those particular organizations, as well as any current memberships, whether it's religious, community, business, labor, or professional. It's always nice to know if they're an Eagle Scout. The next thing they're going to do underneath that is they are going to, if they've changed addresses within a certain number of time, they're going to put their address information in there. And then we're also going to ask them for references. And references are really important. They are required on every application, at least one of them. And then the last part of this application is additional information. And these are questions that are also asked on the paper application, but they're obviously online here. Have you ever been removed from or asked to leave a leadership position in an organization due to allegations regarding your personal conduct or behavior? And we would like for them to obviously provide a little bit of context or an explanation as to what may have happened in this particular case. We also do ask them about any illegal drugs or excessive alcohol use. Have they ever been arrested for a criminal offense other than a minor traffic violation? Has their driver's license ever been suspended or revoked? And have they ever been investigated for, accused of, or charged with abuse or neglect of a minor child? And obviously the last question is, are you aware of any reason not listed above that may call into question your suitability to supervise, guide, care for, and lead young people? These questions are really important for the chartered organization representative to make that decision. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. So once that's all done, it gets submitted after they pay. They'll hit that next link and make their payment, and their application will be submitted. At which point it will go to application manager and it will wait approval. So approving adult applications is the second part of our presentation tonight. And this is really important because it's important for chartered organization representatives or COR delegates to understand how they're supposed to do it. And that does lead to the first point here. Over the past few weeks and months since we started doing online adult applications, a lot of people who are not CORs, chartered organization representatives, or COR delegates have been trying to approve adult applications, and they've been contacting us saying they can't. There's a reason you can't, and that is because it can only be done by those 2 roles. It takes the place of having to track down your chartered organization representative and have them sign a paper application. Instead of that, they're now going to do the approval through application manager. If your chartered organization representative, and we have encountered this, we've had chartered organization representatives who are not computer savvy, or maybe are traveling, or maybe have illness. You may want to talk to your executive officer of your chartered organization about adding a chartered organization representative delegate. That way there you've got somebody who might be a little more hands-on, somebody who might be a little more computer savvy, but we do encourage units to check with their chartered organization before adding an additional delegate to their roster. And also, we are in the middle of recharter right now, so it is worth repeating that outstanding adult applications online will not allow you to complete your unit's charter. So bear that in mind. If you actually get an email from us or a notification stating that you have an application that needs to be processed, that application does need to be processed before you can submit your recharter. Really important to emphasize that, especially this time of year, which is why it's important when we talk about the best practices we outlined earlier, have them take the youth protection training first, because again, that is the number one holdup that we're having right now with online adult applications. So if you've never been on Application Manager before, we're finding that we want to add this to help anyone that's either new to the role of a chartered organization representative or maybe has never done it before. It's real simple. You go into your my.scouting.org account, you select menu, you look up the unit name that you're looking up and select Application Manager. It's real easy to find. And once you've done that, it's going to bring you to this screen. And this screen details a lot of information that we want to dissect here. The first thing we want to do is talk about the number of applications that you currently have outstanding. The other thing that you're going to notice too is your applications have statuses. And there are several different statuses that are worth mentioning here. I know it's a little bit hard to read here, but the top one is really important because those are pending acceptance. Those are the applications that we're waiting for you to act on and that you need to go in and review. There are a couple of other statuses here. One of them is pending approval, and we'll talk a little bit about how that plays into the equation in a few minutes. We also do have pending reassignment, and this also does happen with your youth applications. And after a certain amount of time, the system automatically will change application statuses to pending reassignment. And that's an indication for us here at the council to go look at them to see what might be holding them up and to maybe give you a little nudge and a reminder that they do need to be processed. Sometimes those nudges have notes in them, and that's something else we'll talk about once we get into the profiles there. But the other part down below is a list of every outstanding application and its current status. And they are broken down a couple of different ways to break down. The youth and the venturing, exploring participants, they are silhouettes with baseball caps. So for a chartered organization representative, if they're looking for the adult applications, those are the blue ones with the scouter hat. So when you're looking at these, you want to look at those icons to make sure. And that's why when we have that issue of certain new member coordinators or maybe committee chairs that are trying to approve applications, they're not seeing the difference between the youth and the adults. And that's one of the easiest ways to be able to make that determination is just look at the icon. If it's a baseball cap, that's a youth or a venturing or exploring participant. If it's a scouter cap, that's an adult application that needs to be handled by your charter organization representative. So those are the ones we're going to focus on tonight. Once you get into the application itself, the applicant screen, there are a couple of things here that are worth checking out. The first one is obviously the details about the scout who is joining your organization. There is a summary. There is also an area here for notes. And notes are really important, especially if you're doing something other than approving the application. And again, this doesn't just apply to adult applications. This applies to every application, whether it's a youth, adult participant. And it also gives you information about how far along this process is. And down the bottom, what we have are the buttons for which you're going to do certain actions. And we're going to spotlight those a little bit more right here. So with an application, especially an adult application, you've got some buttons down here that you can do some things with. And I want to go through them one by one. You have accept, you have reassign, you have return application, you have do not accept, and you have send YPT email. And I'm going to start with that one. If somebody doesn't follow our best practices, let's say they apply and they haven't taken YPT, when we get it, we actually send out an automated email that says you need to take youth protection training before we can approve the application. And applications online cannot be approved without youth protection training being documented. So it's very important that, again, that's why we're emphasizing do the youth protection training first before they fill out the application. Now, let's say you look at the bottom and you've got this red square that says review background responses. That means that when we went through those background information questions, somebody might have answered yes to one of those questions. And it's important for the chartered organization representatives to go through. And there's a couple of things that need to happen here. We obviously you're going to want to have a conversation with the applicant to get some more context. But, and again, you can see it here. This is where they might have answered yes, and that would have triggered that particular red box that you'll have to go in and take care of. So with that being said, when you go and click that, it'll ask you and show you the question that they answered yes for and provided comments on. And what you'll do is you will type your comments with a reason. Again, that's why it's really important the chartered organization representative or the COR delegate is involved in this process, because they do have the final say in 99.9% of the cases of adult applications to approve them. So obviously, this is going to be something that they're going to have to pay attention to, and they're going to have to acknowledge it at the end, at which point they will accept it. The other button here, and we talked about some of these buttons earlier, let's talk about return application for a minute. Return application means you might need more information from the applicant. For example, we're seeing some applications where there are no references. So the applications need to be returned. And what you'll do at that point is click that button, send the instructions back to the applicant. And what will happen is it will be sent back to the applicant. And for them to take action, what they'll have to do is log into their my.scouting.org account and go into my application. And under my applications, the applications will be listed and the status will be there, meaning it might need some more information. It might be pending acknowledgement, might be the status. What they'll need to do will be documented there, and they can just click on it, do the information, and resubmit it. Reassign. Reassignments would be, for example, let's say you have Pack 8 and Troop 8, and the adult applied for Pack 8, and they should be with Troop 8. You click the reassign button, and it'll ask you why you're reassigning it. It will come back to the council, and we will go ahead and reassign it properly for you. But again, we talked about lead notes and why they're important. They are really important because from the council side, when we go in and we have to look at that, we want to know what we're doing with this so that we can move the process along and get to an end result rather quickly. The accept button, which is obviously the easiest part of this whole thing. When you click accept, it should go right through unless YPT wasn't completed in the beginning. And what you'll have to do is enter this date and add YPT before you approve the application. That's why, again, and I'm jumping back on this for a minute, step one should be complete YPT. It saves a lot of time in the long run, and that's what we're trying to encourage everybody to do. And then when you accept the applicant, whether or not you've had to do that step with YPT, you've got to select a role for them and select the position. So it's very important that applicants communicate that with the committee, because committee chairs can go in and comment in the lead notes section. So if you're the committee chair, for example, and you know that maybe the applicant is going to be the adult, the assistant scoutmaster, just to put that in there, it's going to help move the process along when it gets to the chartered organization representative. Okay. So once the applications are approved, the rest of this it's pretty well done at that point. And one of the things that we want to talk about real quick in closing is with regards to why online applications are going to make things a lot easier when it comes to processing not only your youth, but your adults. It is a reduced processing time. In fact, if you've ever submitted an adult application, They usually on paper take about 2 weeks to be processed. This gets it done, and upon approval, the adult leader will appear on your roster within 48 hours. The online system is also more efficient because it does reduce the number of data processing errors that need to be fixed. If you've got, for example, a paper application that's very difficult to read, when it gets to data processing, they do the best they can, but there are errors that are made. This is a user-based system, so the user is actually entering the information in, so it should make things a lot easier. And believe it or not, next year when it comes to recharter, it's going to make rechartering a lot easier to be done because your applications are going to be done a lot quicker. Doing them online gets them approved quicker, provided the process is being followed properly. And of course, it does also respect our relationship with our chartered organizations and the duty that the chartered organization representative has to approving leaders for your Packer troop. So that also contributes to continued safe scouting. So that's the whole process, everybody. I hope you found it helpful, and I want to thank everybody for attending tonight.